Silent horror movies are such a huge part of our culture that we can easily recognize them in pictures and moments even if we have never seen the movie. From Nosferatu to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, these movies are absolutely legendary and have played a huge part in horror cinema as we know it today. So today on Top 5 Scary Videos, I'm going to be counting down our list of the top 5 scariest silent horror movies. Before we begin though, be sure to stick around until the end of the video where I'll be responding to some of your comments. And with that, let's jump in. Coming in at 5, The Phantom Carriage 1921. The Phantom Carriage is a 1921 Swedish silent horror movie generally considered to be one of the central works in the history of Swedish cinema. The movie takes place on New Year's Eve when a driver of a ghostly carriage forces a drunken man to look back at his wasted life. The movie is notable for its special effects and advanced narrative structure with flashbacks within flashbacks, which was huge for that time period. Post-production on the movie was famously long and grueling due to the extensive use of special effects developed by cinematographer Julius Jansson. The movie was a major influence on the later Swedish film director Ingmar Bergman, who also utilized the figure of death in The Seventh Seal, where referring to him as a strict master being a direct reference to the Phantom Carriage. Not to mention, it was listed in the film reference book 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die, which states, "The Phantom Carriage not only cemented the fame of director, screenwriter, actor Victor Sjöström and Swedish silent cinema, but also had a well-documented artistic influence on many great directors and producers." More interesting still, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining features several thematic similarities, as well as the famous sequence where Jack Nicholson uses an axe to break through a wooden door to reach his fleeing wife and child. Coming in at 4, The Phantom of the Opera 1925. The Phantom of the Opera is a 1925 silent horror film adapted from Gaston Leroux's 1910 novel Le Phantom de l'Opera, directed by Rupert Julian and starring Lon Chaney in the title role of the deformed phantom who haunts the Paris Opera House, causing murder and mayhem in an attempt to make the woman he loves a star. To this day, the film remains most famous for Chaney's ghastly self-devised makeup, which was kept a studio secret until the film's premiere on November 25th, 1925. Now, the initial response of the film was mixed, with the New York Times giving it fairly positive reviews as a spectacle picture, but felt that the story and acting could have been slightly improved. Variety wrote, I quote, "The Phantom of the Opera is not a bad film from a technical viewpoint, but revolving around the terrifying of all inmates of the Grand Opera House in Paris by a criminally insane mind behind a hideous face. The combination makes a Welsh rarebit look foolish as a sleep destroyer." Whatever that means. Now, the movie was troubled during production and was in turn shot and reshot countless times following poor reviews. As such, it's a movie that is essentially made by Hollywood committee, but is still enjoyable and absolutely horrifying to feast upon. Not to mention the scene when the Phantom removes his mask. That may still be one of the most terrifying scenes in horror movie history. Coming in at number 3, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is a 1920 silent horror produced by famous players Lasky. Starring John Barrymore, the movie is based on the 1886 novella The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. The story, set in the late Victorian London, portrays the tragic consequences of a doctor's experiments in separating the dual personalities he thinks defines all humans, one good, the other evil. The movie itself follows scientist Dr. Henry Jekyll, intelligent and diligent, but also uptight and extremely serious about his work. When his friend Sir George Carew takes him to a show featuring the sensual Miss Gina, an aroused Jekyll sets out on a quest to separate man's saintly and sinful sides. His experiments succeed and his evil alter ego, Mr. Hyde, is created. As the Doctor uncontrollably alternates between Jekyll and Hyde, danger looms. Barrymore is absolutely incredible in this movie, with his own hands extended by gruesome gnarled fingers being a tribute to the famous player Lasky's makeup department. Even back in the 20s, the movie became easily one of the most talked about pictures of all time. According to one magazine, the popularity was so large, a door and 2 windows were broken by crowds who tried to see the movie on its first showing in New York. Coming in at number 2, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is a 1920 German silent horror film directed by Robert Wien and written by Hans Janowitz and Karl Mayer. Now, this movie is considered to be the quintessential work of German expressionist cinema. Inspired by a trip to the fun fair, the movie tells the story of an insane hypnotist who uses a somnambulist to commit murders. Every frame of this movie screams madness and fear, from the tilted backdrops to the death mask makeup. There is a real sense of unease throughout that you just can't quite shake. The script was inspired by various experiences from the lives of Janowitz and Mayer, both pacifists who were left distrustful of authority after their experiences with the military during World War I. Though often considered an art film by some critics, Caligari was produced and marketed the same way as any normal commercial production of its time period. It is the visual style of Caligari that makes this film so damn terrifying. It is dark, twisted, and bizarre, with radical distortions in perspective, form, dimension, and scale, in turn creating a chaotic and unhinged appearance. Roger Ebert described it as a jagged landscape of sharp angles and tilted walls and windows, staircases climbing crazy diagonals, trees with spiky leaves, grass that looks like knives. Caligari is enduringly popular and incredibly influential and remains one of the most terrifying movies of all time. And finally, coming in at number 1, Nosferatu. Nosferatu, a symphony of horror, or simply known as Nosferatu, is a silent German expressionist horror movie directed by F.W. Murnau and starring Max Schreck as Count Orlok, a vampire with an interest in both the new residents and the wife of his estate agent. The film is an unauthorized adaptation of Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula, with various names and other minute details being changed from the novel, including the word vampire being replaced with Nosferatu. Now, what silent horror does best, particularly German expressionism, is psychological unease, shadowy contrasts, and of course queasy perspectives. There is no greater example of this than Nosferatu. Nosferatu has been noted for its themes regarding fear of the other, as well as for possible anti-Semitic undertones. In 1997, legendary film critic Roger Ebert added Nosferatu to his list of the great movies, stating, I quote, "Here is the story of Dracula before it was buried alive in cliches, jokes, TV skits, cartoons, and more than 30 other films. The film is in awe of its material. It seems to really believe in vampires. I admire it for its artistry and ideas, its atmosphere and images, than for its ability to manipulate my emotions like a skillful modern horror film. It knows none of the later tricks of the trade, like threats that pop in from the side of the screen, but Nosferatu remains effective. It doesn't scare us, but it haunts us." Now, Stoker's heirs actually sued over the adaptation, and court ruling ordered all copies of the film to be destroyed. However, a few prints of Nosferatu survived, and the film came to be regarded as an influential masterpiece of cinema. There we have it. Do you guys agree with our list? Were there any silent horror movies that we missed? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and perhaps we can do a part 2. Before I go though, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos. Top 5 Scariest Cosmic Horror Movies Part 4. Clay Shoots said, "Thank you Mistress Lucy for showing love to Life Force. Nobody ever mentions it unless they mean to trash it. It's about time this forgotten gem gets a little respect." I mean, I agree. I showed it a lot of respect, but please, maybe don't call me mistress again. Little weird. MatmanW54301 said, "Lucy wearing that hat makes my weekend. Thank you, goddess." Again, I don't quite understand the love for the hat. And please don't call me goddess. Matt DiMattia said, "Lucy, you're 99% perfect, but minus the 1% for never telling us what the clip is in front of your list." I'm very sorry, Jack did used to do that. If you want me to do that, I can do it, but you gotta put it in the comments. That's all I'm gonna say. I rarely put clips, but if I do, maybe I'll explain it. And finally, Chris Hoyland said, "Is Lucy short?" I am quite short compared to the average person. I'm 5'2 3/4", so if you think that's short, then it's short. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another scary vid. And until next time, see you later.
You slow it down a bit, you're just almost at 9 minutes now.
Slow down, okay. Gonna get back to bed.
Yeah. You're just at 9 now. Good.
Need to add some bloopers.
Yeah, fucking up.
Starring John Barrymore, the movie is based on the. Starring John Barrymore, the movie is based.